welcome to another up close video. So I've got another Arteza one today, and it's fine. I'm finally making this video using the pouring acrylic colours from Arteza, which is already prepared pouring paints in separate little bottles that make it so much easier to do acrylic pouring. And I have been working towards making this video since November, end of November last year maybe, because I actually treated myself to a box of these as a Christmas present, like just for myself, and I loved them so much that I went through the whole box, and then Arteza kindly sent me another box, so I've been doing even more playing with them, and then I finally got round to doing an up close video for you as well. So these paints are so brilliant. If you've tried acrylic pouring before, it's kind of a hassle, especially if you just want to try it for making greetings cards backgrounds when you don't need that much of each colour mixed up, and then you have to have multiple different pots and you've got to put acrylic paint in and like Floetrol or pouring medium, and then you've got to work out if that mixture's too thick or too thin, and do you need to add water, do you need to add more of one of the other. Then you've got to put silicone in it if you want to get the cells and everything, and it's just like a lot of work just to make the colours. And obviously then if you've mixed up too much of the colours, you're then going through making tons of backgrounds all in the same colour combination. But with this gorgeous set of Arteza pouring acrylics, you've got 28 different colours, and you've actually got 3 extra whites and 1 extra black as well, because white and black are like, well, white for me is the colour that I use the most of. Some people do use a lot of black in their work. I tend to find I don't like it as much, although black with metallics looks really gorgeous and actually makes really good masculine kind of cards as well. So I might try and use some more of the black up and show you some bits and pieces in this video. I'll be showing a few different demonstrations of different ways that you can use your acrylic pouring paints to create backgrounds that are kind of a little bit mess free than other ways that I've tried in the past. So hopefully I will get to show you all of those, and I'm also going to show you pouring on an Arteza sketchbook as well, to give yourself a really unique patterned sketchbook cover too, and also wood slices as well. So the paints you can use on so many different surfaces, and there's so many different techniques of ways that you can pour your acrylic paints to get different kind of results, and you can also use silicone to get cells in your paint as well. So I will go through all of that, but firstly, before I forget, I've got another discount code for you that Arteza kindly gave me so that you can have 10% off your order, and the code is CRaFTi Potential 5, which I'll put down here, and I'll also put it as the first thing in the description box so you can easily copy and paste it. And the links to the website are in the description below the video, so you can follow them to get these paints or get anything else off of the website. And the links that I use are affiliate links, so whatever you purchase after clicking on those links, I'll get a small percentage of what you spent at no extra cost to yourself. It just gives me a little bit of extra income so that I can continue to make these really fun videos for you. I know this one is quite overdue because some of you knew that I bought these at the end of last year and have been probably waiting for this video, but to be honest, I do not know where the time has gone. It's gone so quickly. So but I have been playing with these on and off since last November, just creating tons and tons of different backgrounds, trying out different techniques, things that I wanted to try with acrylic pouring, but hadn't sort of built up the courage to spend all that time mixing all of the paints to then, you know, give it a go. But with all of these pre-mixed ones, it's really, really great and convenient. So that is the code to get 10% off. These, they're currently on the website for about £53, which makes them roughly like £160 per bottle, which I think is brilliant value, because I think pouring medium and Floetrol has gone up in price recently. I was looking at getting another big bottle of Floetrol, and I was kind of put off by the price. So I think these are a really good value, and it's worth paying that little bit of extra money to have the convenience of everything already done for you. And once you've used up these colours, keep all of the bottles and then use your Arteza acrylic paints plus some Floetrol or pouring medium, or hopefully Arteza might bring out their own pouring medium, and then you'd be able to mix up some of your own colours, or even with the gorgeous iridescent acrylic colours that Arteza have come out with, you could even mix up some of these into paints to go with whatever colours you have left and stuff as well. So I think this set is going to be really useful for us card makers because it just takes all of that hassle out of it. So you've got 28 different colours. How I have been keeping track of the colours, you can see here I've actually already completely used up a white, and I've nearly through the other white as well, I think. Yeah, I need to start another bottle there. But the way I've been keeping track of my colours is when you open them, there's like a little seal on the inside, and obviously it has some paint on it. So I've just been spreading that paint onto the lid as I open them, so I can instantly see what the colour looks like. It's slightly harder with some of the darker, more transparent kind of colours, like or the neon purple. I think maybe it's the neon colours actually. The neon blue, the phthalo green, and ultramarine blue. Some of them are a little bit tricky to tell what the actual colour looks like, especially if you work on white rather than on black, but it gives you an indication and helps you pick out your colours a lot easier. But the bottle is actually the representation of the colour. It's exactly the colour that you see because you're actually seeing the paint through the bottle, so it's pretty easy to pick all your colours out. And then obviously all of the paints come in this gorgeous sturdy box, just like the tempera paints that I did a video of a little while ago. So it's really nice to store on your shelf or in a cupboard or something, and I really love the box of this one. I've actually saved the box of my first box, and I'm going to cut some of the panels out because I just love that pattern that they've used on here, and they've even like got concentrated pools of glitter in here because as well, once you've done your pour and everything's all wet, you can sprinkle in whatever you like. You can sprinkle in glitter, gilding flakes, mica powders, all sorts of different stuff you can actually sprinkle into it as well. And so I'll go through the colours too if you want to hear all of the colour names. So you've got 4 titanium whites, you've got silver grey, so that's just a matte grey colour, you've got 2 Mars blacks, you've got pastel yellow, neon yellow, lemon yellow, mid yellow, gold, which is metallic, bronze, which is metallic, neon orange, carnation pink, coral, rose pink, cerise pink, neon pink, vermilion red, brilliant red, metallic wine red, which again is metallic, neon purple, lavender, neon blue, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, neon green, sea green, forest green, and phthalo green as well. So you've got a really nice mixture of colours all the way across the rainbow, which is brilliant. And I was going to say too, I think this is a great set for, say you have a colour scheme in your bedroom and you want to create some big poured canvas to go wall, and you're not quite sure if all of the colours from your colour scheme are going to go nicely together. You could pick out similar colours in these paints, give it a go on a smaller scale, and then if you know that those colours are going to work together, or you might want to switch in or out other colours, you can then know that when you're going to mix up larger quantities of those paints, maybe using paint that you've used to decorate bits and pieces in your room, you know that all of those colours are going to look really nice together, and you're not going to get any bad surprises of, you know, spending that much money on Floetrol or pouring medium to create that kind of quantity of paint that you would need. So I thought that was a really good way of using these as well. But obviously the main reason that I really love them is for my card making, because it creates such unique and interesting backgrounds, or you can also die cut it once it's dry and create focal elements as well for your cards. So I also wanted to, I've got so much to tell you for this video, so I also wanted to say you can use, none of these paints have silicone in, so if you use them you just get the gorgeous swirling of the paints. I have got, well, this piece is kind of a bad example because oh, actually I'll show you this piece. So this is working on one of the wood slices from Arteza, one of these You get 25 of these gorgeous wood slices. They're natural pine wood with the bark already on the edge, and they're pre-sanded and polished to a smooth finish, so you can actually paint on them as well. If you're really good at doing your hand lettering and painting, you could paint on these too. But they're really great for pouring on, and I think I want to like maybe do resin over the top of this and make them into coasters. But anyway, I went on a sidetrack then. This is, if you just use them as they are out of the bottles, you get this kind of effect. Obviously, depending how you pour them, you'll get a different effect, but it will be solid colours, you know, that sort of have ribbons through it, and they sort of twirl together. But if you use something called silicone in your paints, you can get these kind of cool effects. This is actually a little canvas that I did. It's the only canvas that I had, but just a little small one, doing a little pour with some multiple blue tones and a little bit of white and silver and stuff in it. But you get this kind of, they call it cells that it creates, but it gives a completely different look. See, this is really solid and maybe more bold and geometric-y kind of, but this gives you that more organic kind of a look to your paintings, and the way you achieve this is with silicone. Now, I also bought this other product which is called the Cell Creator, which is from the Dina Wakley media line, and I tried it with these and it doesn't work. So I bought this thinking, oh, I can just recommend this and people can get this, but no, it doesn't work very nicely with the Arteza pouring paints. I think it's just formulated to work with Dina Wakley's paints and pouring medium, so this doesn't work with the Arteza ones. But what I do use is this, which I got off of eBay, and it's just some silicone oil. I think it's for like racing cars and stuff. This is a bit thick. You don't actually need it to be this thick. I think 1,000 would probably be thick enough, but when I was buying this, it had a whole option of all the different thicknesses and I wasn't really sure which one to get, so I went for the kind of middle of the road one. But this is a bit thick. You don't really need it that thick. And how I've been getting around the fact that usually you have your separate colours and you put the silicone in each of the colours that you want and you mix it up and then you use them. But I was like, well, I don't really want to have to dirty loads of different pots each time I do a pour to be able to add a bit of silicone to the colours that I want to use, and you know, you still got the whole loads of different pots that are dirty then at the end, so you might as well have just mixed them yourself. And I didn't want to add it straight to the bottles just in case I wanted to then do something where I didn't have silicone in it. So my solution was take one bottle of white, label it and say silicone on it, and then put the silicone in this white, because I know that I use white in everything. I really like the look of having the white in a pour, so if I just put the silicone in the white and I add all the other colours in, I'll get that cell effect just from having it in this one colour. So that's what I've been doing, and I actually need to do a new bottle. So I still have one full white bottle and this half one that I've been using, so I'm going to make this half one into a new silicone one. And all I do is I you know, take the bottle and just write silicone on it, so I know that this one's got the silicone in, and then the other one that doesn't say that obviously hasn't got it in. And that's been working really great for me. That's what I've been doing all the way through both my boxes. And all you do, this is about half full, this one, so I've got some stringy paint in there. So all I've been doing is just putting a few squirts of this in, and then shaking it up again, and then obviously before I use it each time, I shake it up again to make sure it's nicely dispersed throughout the paint. And then you've instantly got one that's got silicone in it ready to make the cells in your pour that you've done. So I wanted to share that with you. And so as well as working on an actual stretched canvas like this that you could hang on your wall really easily, or working on the wood slices, which I will pour on later to show you that as well, you can also work on the canvas panels. I know Arteza do a lot of these thin canvas panels. They weren't in stock when I was getting my paints, but I had a couple of old ones that I just chopped into, well, yeah, I chopped them into a half or a quarter to just try out some techniques on them. And I thought I'd just show you the results that I got. So this one's got some really cool effects with the the cells that that silicone created. It kind of gave you double or triple walled cells with the different colours. A lot of this is actually trial and error to get these kind of results. It's unless you've written down exactly what you did and you realise what thing you did actually made this kind of thing work, it's quite difficult to replicate. But that's what I love about this, is you never kind of know what result you're going to get out of it. So this was using a lot of blues and the coppery colour in here as well. And again, I had the silicone just in the white colour, and that's how I got all of these cells out of it. Then I also wanted to do, I think, no, that one has got silicone. I also wanted to do, try a tree ring pour. So this is where you don't have any silicone in the paint, you're just using it straight out the bottles. And you put all of the colours into a cup and you try and spin the cup as you're pouring the paint out. And then you get kind of this tree ring sort of effect. Mine went a bit wobbly and lopsided, but you get this kind of ring. Obviously the more you tilt it and stuff, you get more different like variation in the circular shape. But it just gives a completely different look to a pour, whereas this one was just like putting everything into a cup and flipping it upside down and then moving it around, whereas this one was more controlled in trying to do a tree ring pour. This was a clean pour, so this is where you just pour the paint straight onto the canvas, the different colours out of the actual bottles, and sort of tip it together and try and swirl it around a little bit. And I think there's a little bit of silicone in there, there's a few little cell kind of pieces popping up. Then this one is actually a bubble wrap squish, which I will show you because I really love this technique. And this was using all of the gorgeous neon colours, and I think this gives a really wacky cool technique. And because you've used the white with the silicone in, you've got little areas that have got that gorgeous cell or the circular kind of pattern coming through. So I really like that one. And then this one was also the neon colours, attempting the wrecker ring pour, where you do a ring pour but then you pull like a stick through it to sort of mess it up before you tilt it. However, the colours got very muddy on this one. I think it is because the neon colours are kind of a little bit more translucent, and you could tell that from the lids of the bottles. Like for example the neon blue, it just looks black on black because it's quite translucent. So you kind of have to be a little bit wary of translucent paints when you're doing this kind of a thing where they're really overlapping, so it turns out a bit muddy. But I discovered that the corner was peeling up of this, because this was a large piece that I cut into 4, the corner was peeling up, so you can actually remove the canvas from the front of the canvas board and actually use it for something else as well. And obviously I tried it with the one that went a bit muddy first, but you could die cut this. You can die cut this with Tonic's media dies, which have the thick blade, or the deep cut dies that Sizzix do as well. And you could create some really cool bracelet charms or a necklace pendant, all sorts of weird and wacky things like that, or even sew it as well. So I wanted to show that you can easily take it off of these kind of canvas boards once you have poured it. It keeps it nice and flat to keep the actual pattern or design, but you can actually remove the canvas from the board as well. So I wanted to show those little examples that I had done. And then, talking about canvas, I also poured on one of Arteza's little watercolour books. So I showed in, I think it was my Twi marker video, possibly. I showed that I got a set of 3 of their little watercolour books, and so I decided to pour on it. I poured the back cover first, and then I went with the front cover, and I actually filmed the process of the front cover, so I will insert that footage now so you can see how I did it. I kind of made a bit of a mess, but I was having fun, so I'll show you that footage now. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that footage of me having fun and making a mess, and you probably saw that I had coated the book in like plastic and stuff and tape to keep it from any of it getting on the pages, so you can see that all of the pages are totally pristine, ready for me to work on them. And I decided to do it this way round, to pour the cover before I've ever used the book, just because I'd get really annoyed if I ended up getting paint in between the pages and stuff, and it would have kind of stuck all the pages together. But either way round should be fine. And the way I just protected all of this is I took some cling film and wrapped it around it, and then took some tape to secure all of that in place. And then for the covers, I just took some scrap acetate that I had, cut a piece that was slightly smaller than the cover, and then used tape to tape it off. In some places it has come away a little bit and I've got a little bit of paint in there, but none of the pages got any paint on them, so I'm really pleased about that. And this is the final result of the cover. You would have seen that some of the paint dripped down the back of the book, and I kind of created I kept changing my mind for the front of it, but I kind of created this waterfall sort of look. So you've got the stripes coming down and then the messy sort of frothy kind of water where I had blown the paint, and it had the silicone in it, and it made those cool bubbly effects. You can also see how the paint is, or the pattern is, much more prominent on the back than it is on the front, and this is because the front only had one layer of paint, whereas the back, because it dripped over the top of it, it ended up with 2 layers of paint. So this actually feels much more painty, whereas this feels just like the fabric did before. So if you want that kind of fabricy look, then don't go more than 1 layer. If you want it to be a bit more plasticky, you can put a 2nd layer on. However, I had left my book to dry like this, and because this paint was a bit thicker here, I did have to fiddle with it a bit to get this cover to go back down nicely, because obviously these books are made from a hard piece of cardboard covered in the canvas, and obviously that gets a little bit soggy as you're covering the whole thing in wet paint. So you kind of have to be a little bit careful, but in the end it's gone back to just how it was. So I'm really pleased with how this turned out, and I'm going to use this as a watercolour journal, because July is actually National Watercolour Month, I think, and I've been really wanting to get back into, or even give watercolours a proper go really, and I thought if I've got a really nice pretty looking book to use, then hopefully I will get into doing some watercolouring in my spare time, and it'll make me want to do it because the book looks so pretty. So, and I think I just said that I did the back cover first and then did the front cover and the spine, because I knew that I would make a mess on whatever I had already poured. I think if I had done the whole thing in one go, I would have been in a right mess as well. So I decided back cover first, because if anything dripped over it, it wasn't going to be the front of the book that I was trying to make a kind of design on. And I think that worked out really well, and I really do love the way the spine came out. I think the spine looks gorgeous. I mean, I maybe wish this bit was a little bit more vibrant like the back is, but I really don't want to mess up what I've already got here. And after I finish the book and it's not going to be handled too much anymore, I could always add some die cuts or some ribbon or some more extra embellishments on the front of the book as well. So that is actually working onto and making a project really pretty with these paints. And the paints that I were using, let me tell you the colours. So I used the titanium white with the silicone in it, and then I used sea green, which is my absolute favourite, and I'm practically out of that completely now. And then I also used the phthalo green and the forest green, and then the bronze colour as well. And I think in some of the other ones that I'll show you, I really love this colour scheme, but in the other ones that I show you I also used grey, and I kind of wish I had used some of the grey in this one as well, but I'd forgotten that I'd actually put the grey in. But I think it turned out really nice, and you still get the depth and the lightness. Oh yeah, I should say that as well. So when I am picking colours to do an acrylic pour, I like to pick white, as I already told you, white's my favourite. And then I like to pick 3 or 4 other colours to go with the white, but they need to be in a good range of intensity and darkness. So you want to go for maybe a couple of deeper tones, a metallic, and then a lighter tone and the white, because the white can always lighten up one of the deeper tones, and the metallic just adds a gorgeous element of shimmer and stuff in there, and obviously the white gives that really nice light contrast, so you actually get more of a difference between stuff. Because on this one that I didn't really have enough of a dark tone. I maybe should have used a little bit of black in it, or added more white into it. It's all, other than the white, it's all kind of like one sort of tone really. There's not as much definition as you can kind of see in this one. So it's worth playing around with the colours that you use as well, and switching out dark and lights and stuff. But the great thing is, with having these bottles already made for you, you can just squeeze out like pea-sized amounts of the different colours that you're thinking of using and swirl them together and see if you think they're going to work. You don't have to go through all that effort of mixing up the colours, or you know, and everything, and figuring out what colours you think are going to work together. You can actually just squeeze a tiny bit out of the bottle, which is brilliant. So that is my journal that I poured on. I was hoping to have gotten one of their larger watercolour books so I could do a bigger piece, but they were out of stock. I think they're in stock again now, so I think they do a large, like 8-inch square, and I think they do an A4 one as well. I think they would look marvellous with this on the cover, so I'll make sure to link those below in case you're interested in doing this kind of a project. In terms of how much paint this used, I probably did use more paint than I should have done, because in that clip you probably saw there was quite a lot of paint left on the surface. However, I did mop it up and use it on some pieces of cardstock, but definitely less than half a bottle of each of the colours, probably more like a quarter of the bottle of each of the colours, so it doesn't use too much paint. I mean, if I probably used 4 colours and white for this one, so like say 1 bottle and a bit is not too much for making a gorgeous book like this, and you could personalise these for people as well and do them as presents too. Okay, so you know I said I've been playing with these for a while. Well, I've built up quite a stack of different bits and pieces that I've been playing with. This isn't even everything. There's been multiple other projects that I've been using these on as well. But this is just a little proportion of what I have been using these on. Trying out different colour schemes, die cutting them. I've also been cutting die cut apertures and things and putting them over the top of it as well. I'm going to just show you these different pieces, then I'm going to do a few demos of actually doing some acrylic poured backgrounds to show you a few of my favourite ways that I've been using them, and then I will show you some other finished projects that I've done with them, because it's all very well me showing you how to have fun and play with all these paints, but sometimes it's difficult to see how you can make them into an actual finished project. So I've got quite a few card samples finished, and I've also used a die cut piece in an art journal page as well, so I'll show you all of that too. But I just wanted to go through some of the kind of effects that you can get, and then I will actually do some pouring to show you as well. So you've got these kind of gorgeous ones. This is actually a squish. I have actually used the other half of this to cut out of, but they were basically both together like this, and then I pulled them apart. And this one has got weird places on it, because I was trying out actually adding the silicone to the paint after I'd put it on the card, basically adding the silicone to the paint, and in some places you get this really weird kind of dotty effect, because obviously the oil had touched the card first and then the paint had beaded up on top of it, but on the other one it's totally fine. But it's a really cool way of getting that. Actually, I forgot to tell you, where did I put it? Okay, before I go any further, I need to tell you about this. So this is the Arteza Acrylic Pad. If you watched my Essentials video that I put up recently, I was telling you about this and using it with your acrylic pouring. It is brilliant. I really love this for acrylic pouring, because this is A3 in size, so I can get 8 of my small A6 kind of sized pieces of card out of it to use for my cards. So you can basically get 8 card fronts out of one sheet of that, and it gives you this gorgeous texture. It looks just like a canvas. If I hold the, maybe even looks more like a canvas. That is a canvas texture, and then this is the card texture. So I think it's a more delicate texture maybe, so for working with cards it shows up really, really nicely. And it is pure white as well, so if you like to put your card panels and stuff onto white card blanks, it is pure white, so it goes really nicely with it, and it cuts really nicely. This is the piece that I used on my art journal that I'm going to show you at the end, but you could layer an aperture over the same sort of colours, or like this one, you could have a completely different colour pour behind an aperture from a pour, and like, you know, completely, or like with the wacky colours as well. Loads of different ways of using all these bits and pieces that you can have fun creating. And you don't just have to use this cardstock that I just told you about. Normal white cardstock works nicely too, you just don't have that texture. If I show them both next to each other, you can kind of see, I just feel like that texture really adds something extra to it and makes it look like it is an actual, you know, piece of art and an actual like canvas painting. So that was using the neon orange with some pinks and whites and the metallic red in there as well. And then this is my favourite colour scheme of using purples and blues and pinks together. Oh my gosh, that really doesn't show up nicely. That is a really bright and vibrant neon purple, but it looks like a moody kind of purple on here, but it's really neon, that is. This is kind of, so this was leftover paint that I had just squished onto here, and then I like to pour from these little cups. They're just like little sauce cups. You can pour really little paints in them and then pour out, but sometimes some of this settles back into the bottom once you've finished pouring with it, and you can just tip it and get these little dots of all the colours mixed together, which I really like. So I actually just used that to create a background. You could even die cut these out with little circle dies or with circle punches and have them as embellishments. If you did like a whole sheet of them, just using up all the excess out of your little pots, would look really lovely. I've even kept my little scraps here, so that these are pieces that I've been cutting off to make some cards, but I've kept all the little scraps just in case I might need a border on a card. Or this is sprinkling glitter into that one. That's got some fine grade glitter in there, which just adds an extra element. I've got these ones. I was trying to use black. I don't know if there's any more hidden in here, yeah. So I was trying to use black and the primary colours. I think this was the first one because it's the most prominent, and this was actually using the bubble wrap method, which I will show you in a minute. And we've got some metallic in there, and sort of the more you take off of this, you get a sort of a more muddier effect because the paints are kind of mixing every time you pull more off of it. And let me show you, I've got it under here. So you create this kind of design with bubble wrap. You put all of the paint into the bubble wrap, and then you compress these pieces in, and then as you pull it off you get all of this peak sort of design. And I had white, obviously, or maybe no, I did have white in there, and you could also add a little bit of extra silicone into this as well, because you'd have quite a bit of paint on here when you're doing this technique. But that's how you pull them off. You have the paint on the bubble wrap and then you pull them off like this, but you get left with this cool thing as well. So this paint was all left to dry in all of these areas in the bubble wrap, but you can actually peel it out once it's completely dry. It does take a few days for this to completely dry, but then you get this cool mixed media piece. And you might think that colour combination is horrendous, that looks awful, but stick this onto a canvas and gesso it black and add gems and all sorts of other die cuts and paper flowers and all that, and you've just got an extra like cool 3D dimensional piece in the background that people may not have known how you've made, which is really interesting as well. So when you've been doing the bubble wrap method that I will show you in a minute, don't forget to just leave your bubble wrap off to one side to dry, because you get these really wicked effects with them as well. And then I have another piece under here. I'm not sure if I can get this out because oh, maybe I can. This was the one that I did with the fluorescent colours. I forgot I'd actually left this on here, so that's quite good that I can actually show you. Yeah, so you see, once it's been drying for a long time, this has actually been drying for months, but It would probably only take maximum of a week to completely dry, but then you get these really wacky, cool pieces to use. I think that looks really nice how it is actually. I mean, sticking that onto a card and maybe having an intricate die cut on top of it or something, with maybe with a solid vellum backing behind it like a butterfly, that would look really lovely. So I really do think this bubble wrap method is a brilliant one to know. So that is that. I've got so many bits and pieces everywhere, but I wanted to show you all these little examples. These pieces are from the bubble wrap method, from using those neon colours. I do like the neon colours together actually. I'm not usually that much of a neon coloured person, but I was really enjoying how this came out. And look, you can see as the paint starts to run out a little bit, if you don't keep topping it up as you're going, you can actually start to get some of the bubble wrap actually coming across in the print as well, which I think is really lovely. Or with more of the paint in there, you're getting more of a solid design. And this had a lot of paint in this one, and this has got less because you've got the dotty design coming through again. Then these ones, another one of my favourite techniques is what I call the squishing technique. So these two, no, they didn't go together. Maybe, okay, I'm not sure which ones these went together. Or maybe they went together that way. Anyway, the way you do it is you take two pieces of card roughly the same size, and then you blob on the different colours of paint. Obviously I've used the white in here to get the sort of cell effect that's coming across in there, and then all you do is you put the plain piece of card on top of the one with all the paint on, squish it together, and then pull it apart, and you get this really cool design, which this one I've actually sprinkled a little bit of glitter into as well. And I really love these, and it doesn't matter that it hasn't gone all the way to the edges, because my favourite way of using these is behind an aperture on a card, or behind one of those kind of verso dies where they just sort of cut into the card and leave the pattern in the card. They look really gorgeous with these kind of backgrounds. That's the same kind of thing but with some gold in it. This is one of my favourite colour combinations. You can see it's the same as the book, but I had the grey in this one, whereas I didn't in the book. But this sea green is so gorgeous. Really, really gorgeous. And I don't know if I didn't use any silicone in this one actually. It is just the paints, so you haven't got any of that cell effect that's in there. You've just got the gorgeous feathery kind of look of where you've pulled them apart. This is that same colour combination but with the silicone in it. I think this might have actually been the runoff from the back of the book. I actually saved some of that, and this is a silicone bristled pastry brush from IKEA. When you've got all of the paint on there, you can just drag a brush through it. You can dip this in a different colour and drag it through it as well, but you kind of agitate all of the different layers of colour that are on top of each other and bring up the kind of cell detail as well. So that's a really interesting way of using them. This is another one where the silicone has gone straight onto the cardstock, and you've got these weird kind of patterns in there that are really interesting, and they give a little bit of different detail. That's another one with the bubble wrap. This is more where I have done the squish with and without. Oh no, they're both with silicone, those ones. But another different colour scheme. I would never have put these colours together. Grey, lemon yellow, baby pink and gold, but it works really nicely. And you can try out all these different weird colour schemes as well. So I think that one looks really lovely. I also gave some rainbow ones a go. There's more rainbow ones in the card samples that I'll show you. I must have used 2 of them. But this was like a squishing technique. And you've got these gorgeous little wispy bits that have appeared in there as well. It kind of looks like a rough sea, but it's in rainbow version. That looks really cool actually. Looks like the rough kind of waves and that. I've got sort of pinky reddy version. I've got that is fluorescent purple there with fluorescent pink and the bronzy colour. I've got these ones, see here, this is more colours that are similar to each other, and you see you don't get as much definition from the tones of the colours when you use ones that are similar, but it still gives a different look that you can't really achieve in any other way. So that gives a really cool feel for a project, using a bit more contrast and adding in the yellow and the oranges, and again doing pulling techniques or dripping it on and moving it around as well. This was using the leftovers, these were the leftovers from the front of the book and the spine, and I just added a bit of extra gold in, or the copper in, to make some extra pattern in there. And you can see here, as all of the colours mixed together, they've kind of all gone in one tone, but you can still see little bits of detail in there where you've got tiny little bits of contrast between the colours. I've also got these different ones. This was a different technique which I haven't planned on showing you, but if I find a lid I might show you that as well. Oh, that's a different one. So these are all, no, that's a mica one too. That might be a mica one as well. These are all the lid technique. So what you do is you drop all of the colours as if you were going to do a squishing technique, but you then take the lid of a bottle, like a water bottle, and press it into the paint. Obviously you clean it off when you're going between different colours, but you press it into the paint and it gives you this cool effect. It gives you that kind of squish effect, but it's in more of a controlled manner, and you can press it in different areas to get different kinds of looks. This was another of the same kind of colour combination as the book that I did. This was, I'd done this one with golds and blues and pinks and purples, and then I had just used the excess and spread it really thinly onto some textured white cardstock. This is one of my favourites. This is quite a large one. This was actually blowing the paint, so taking a straw and blowing puddles of it around the page to try and get some cool different patterns, similar to how I did the front of the book. Then this one is again using more neon colours. I think that was with the pastry brush again. I was just swiping it around and moving the colour around. Then a few more things to show you. I haven't actually done any with the iridescent paints that Arteza have out, but these would be brilliant mixed in with some of the other colours to give some cool effects, especially if you put them with the black paint or did them onto a black surface. You'd get the other colours that show in these, but you would need to mix these with a pouring medium or Floetrol to get them to be in a nice consistency that would go with these colours. Or you can actually use the Arteza mica powders as well. So I did a whole up close video on these with all the gorgeous colours that are in there. Lovely colours, I love all these little pots. And so you can actually pour with these as well. You don't want to add too much in, because these two, I think I overloaded with too much of the mica, and it's actually gone really weird and textured, which is kind of an interesting look, but it wasn't what I was going for, but it does give an interesting look as well. So that was kind of overloading with the mica. But then when you don't go quite so heavy-handed with the mica, I'm not sure if you can really catch it. It's kind of in a few sparse areas on that. Or this one actually. You can kind of get more of this sort of effect in there as well, mixing in the mica powders. Again, you have to mix them with a pouring medium or Floetrol, or you can even try with glue as well. You can mix glue and obviously add a bit of water in to get them to be the same kind of consistency as the Arteza paints, but you can also do that as well. So I'll just put all this away and then I will show you some of these techniques in action as well. Okay, so I thought I'd start off with a tree ring pour on a tree ring. Just as something different to show you. I'm not the best at tree ring pours. It's much easier to do them on something that is much bigger. So if you had one of those larger Arteza watercolour books, like the big square one or the A4 one, I think a tree ring pour would look really brilliant on the cover, but I'm not the best at doing them, but I wanted to give another one a go. So I'm going to try with some blues and greys and silvers. So I'm just going to use these four. I'm not actually going to use white in this one, just because with a tree ring pour you don't really want the silicone, because it kind of messes with the pattern. Not that that'll probably really matter if I'm doing it because I'm not very good at doing it, but I just want to show you the kind of technique of how to do it. Obviously you can look up a lot of these techniques on YouTube and find better people to explain them as well. So I'm going to use, this is silver grey, and then I'm also using phthalo blue, and then I'm going to use the silver, which is the metallic one. And then I'm going to bring in some of the neon blue as well. The colours might vary actually, using them onto a wood piece, especially this neon blue. But actually that might look quite cool because I might actually get some of the original tree ring kind of showing through the colour. So that might be an advantage once it's dried. We might be able to see that. But I'm just going to add a little bit more. If I've got any left over, I'll just show you a different technique on a piece of card for using this. And then when I have done this, I like to mix it a tiny bit as well. A lot of the time I've just been using one of these like cheapy plastic glue spreaders. Just, you know, it's just easier really. Or you can use a lolly stick as well if you've got any lolly sticks. And then you're supposed to let like a thin stream of the paint come out and go in a spiral motion to try and mimic this tree ring. However, mine never really turns out that great. I'm not very good at being patient, I don't think. Okay, I don't want it to go off the side, so that's actually probably one of the best ones that I've done. But I don't want to get it on the bark, I don't think. I think I want to really try and keep it just in the blonde area of the wood. And actually, when you're pouring on the wood, it doesn't matter too much if it is a little bit thick, the paint layer that you've put on, because wood is really porous, so it's really going to soak that paint in and give you all that wood texture back again. So I kind of messed up the middle, but the outside looks quite nice. Yeah, I think I'm quite pleased with that actually. And again, that would make a really cool coaster if you leave that to dry and then add some resin on it. I think that would be a really cool coaster. I think I'm happy with that. I'm kind of annoyed I messed up the middle a bit, but I think that's kind of a cool one to do. So I'm going to put it off to the side. Okay, hopefully that is a level surface, otherwise we'll find out later when it all pours off one side. I have got a little bit of paint left, so another kind of technique that you can do is a dirty cup, but when I do that I do prefer to have some silicone in there, so I'm just going to try and use up this last of this white one. Not sure how much is left in here. Okay, that's completely gone, that one now. And then I'm just going to mix that up a little bit again. And then for the dirty cup, it's like a flip cup sort of thing. So you put the card on top. I'm using the acrylic paper pad, or what's it called? Just acrylic pad. For this, it's a 400 GSM cardstock as well, so it's really nice. And you put this on top of the pot, and then you just flip it. And then wait for the paint to kind of fall down. It's all sort of going to one side at the moment, but and then once you know, enough of the paint has sort of dripped down off of the top, you can then just manipulate the card to try and move it across the card a little bit more. Oh look, I've got one of those little drips there with the multiple colours in. We can save some of this pot to be able to do that with as well. Look how gorgeous the pot looks. It's a shame the pot doesn't just stop moving there, so you could peel that out and use it, but it does usually keep moving a bit more than that. So now we've got all of this gorgeousness on here. This maybe isn't quite enough that you would need to to cover a larger area to do one of those sort of die cuts on top, but you can always die cut little bits out of it as well, and you can actually use the negative then as well. So if you wanted to make this into a Christmas card, because it's like blue and grey and white and silver, you could cut some, I'd go for chunkier snowflake dies. You could cut a few of them out of this, and then you could take some of the, you could use the negative piece from where the snowflakes have come from, and then bring the snowflakes out into the rest of the design as well to give a really cool different look too. So there's tons of different ways that you can use these backgrounds once you've had fun creating them, but the process is so much quicker. Like before, I'd want to sit down and I'd just be really in the mood to just do something like this, but it would be an hour, hour and a half later, and then I finally mixed up all the paints, and then I can get on with this kind of stuff, and by that time you're sort of over it really. So I really do love these paints. So that is just a small little, that's a dirty flip cup, that one, with silicone to get a little bit of cell action in there. Okay, then another one I want to show you is the squishing technique. So for this one, you want 2 pieces of cardstock roughly the same size. I'm going to use, I just picked out some colours in front of me, so I think I'm going to use lemon yellow, neon orange, vermilion red, and gold, and then I'll use some white with the silicone in as well, so we can get some really cool cell patterns in there. And for this one you don't need a cup, so this is quite a good one to do if you're just trying them out for the first time. These ones have actually still got quite a bit in these ones, that's good. So you just want to put the paint on one of them, and you just want to dot the paint all over, depending on how much, how many different areas you want the paint in. You can sort of spread it out further. I'm going to do more yellow because I know that yellow is probably going to mix with the red and make even more orange, or mix with the orange and make a lighter orange. So we're going to use some of that gorgeous neon orange. It's quite nice just throwing in a random neon colour, not completely random, I mean that goes with the colour scheme, but then you just get that like sharp pop of a colour. It's really interesting, especially if you were going to spend all that time mixing the colours. It's something that you might not think to do really. You might think, oh, I don't know if it's going to work, so I won't actually spend all the time to make that colour up, but having them all pre-made is really nice to experiment. And then a bit of white so we can get some cells in there as well. And then this might be a bit too much paint, but if it is, you just take another piece of card and you know, you can squish some more off onto something else. So you don't want to squish this too much because you don't want it to all start flying out the edges like it just started to do at the top there. Oh, and there. So I think I did use a little bit too much paint. And then you just want to pull it apart quickly. And then that's when that gorgeous cell action happens. And you can actually tip it back a little bit to get some of that cell pattern to go back across. And sometimes it's really random cells, sometimes it's really circular ones, so it's different depending on well, all sorts of different factors, I reckon. And it's hard to know what factors are affecting things, but it's nice to just be able to experiment. And at this stage you can sprinkle in glitter as well. And also, if you weren't that keen on how some of this turned out, we could actually put it back together. Oh, I don't want to make too much of a mess. Put it back together and pull it apart again, and you might get a better result that time with more cells across more of the cardstock. So I really love this kind of technique. This is how I've created all those kind of ones that I've shown you. And I think blues and greens of this would look really great for underwater scenes. If you've got any die cuts of like fish or octopus, jellyfish, all that kind of stuff, I think they would look really lovely with a bluey greeny background like this. So I just take off a little bit of that excess, and then I will leave these to dry. Okay, that's kind of on a wonky surface, so I might have to move that soon. Okay, I just need to clean up a little bit. I do usually just work straight onto my glass mat, but because I want to switch between different colours, I've just put this scrap paper down so that I can easily switch between. I wouldn't usually waste that, but there's not that much on there. And I'll just get another piece of scrap. Okay, so another technique I wanted to show you is blowing through a straw to get some cool effects. So let's use a slightly larger piece of card, and you kind of want to puddle all the paint together. So what colours do I want to use for this? I've got some pinks and reds, or the metallic red here. Maybe these colours, and then the white again, because you want the kind of cell effect in there. So I'm going to do a couple, maybe 3 puddles. I think it's nice if you pour the colours inside each other as well, so you kind of just put them inside, and then I'm going to put the white in the middle, so that hopefully we might get more cells because it's sort of in between the different colours. And then we can use some pink. This is the neon pink, and then some of the red as well. This is actually the same way we do a different technique, which I'll show you after this one. And then you just want to blow. And you can blow as much or as little as you like to get different results. And you can also blow both directions as well. And get it to fill all the areas of the card. So that larger piece I showed you before that was all blues and purples, that's how I created that kind of effect. And obviously the more you blow it, the more the colours are going to merge, so like the less distinct colours you're going to get. But you can always add a little bit of extra colour on the top and blow it again if you have really muddied something up a little bit too much. But if you use colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel, you shouldn't get any actual muddy colours. It just might be that they're not that distinct from each other. But that is the blowing with a straw technique. Then, similar to that, let's use different colours this time. Let's go back to the blues. So a similar technique to that is using a lid to sort of crush the design and give that kind of effect. I have only got a tiny lid here. The last time I did this I actually just used a water bottle lid, so that's more like this size. But hopefully this will work just as well. We might need smaller puddles to get this to work. And you don't have to use all the same colours in all of the puddles, if you know what I mean. So you can mix it up. And you can put as much or as little out everywhere as you want as well. But you do need like at least 2 or 3 colours layered on top of each other to get this kind of look to work. I'll do a little bit more of a really dark. And then those 3 extra ones need some white on them. Actually, I might put a little bit of the dark on those 2 because I didn't put any dark in them. So this is, you're only really putting this many puddles to kind of fill up the card, and then all you do is you take your lid and you just hit it in there, and you can do it multiple times, and it just sort of merges the colours together and gives that cool cell look. It is much easier with a bigger lid, but it does kind of work. You only really need to do it once with a bigger lid, and you can manipulate it to fill up all of the card. You can add sort of drippy bits off of the lid to try and get different textures around the card as well. So that's just another really fun way of creating a cool cell-filled background. And again, I've still got the silicone in my white. That's how I'm getting that cell kind of background. It wouldn't look quite the same if you didn't have the silicone in the white colour, but that is that kind of a technique. Then the final one that I was going to show you is the bubble wrap, because I think that is such a cool technique. So all you want to do is take a piece of bubble wrap, and I'm just going to cut a strip off here. And then maybe cut it to about here, and I might snip these pieces of cardstock in half so they're a bit smaller, just to show you. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And then you kind of want a bubble wrap that hasn't got too much of a big profile. If you use the big bubble wrap, you're going to want to pop all the bubbles, because if you... I've got the big one here. If you start filling this full of paint, you've got to fill a lot of paint in there to be able to press your card on it, and for it to be able to make contact with the paint, if you know what I mean. So the small bubble wrap is kind of better, and you can also go through and pop some of them if you want to. Then I think I'm going to do some pinky peachy kind of colours maybe, with the white, and then I might throw in the orange as well. So I'm going to do these kind of colours. And all you want to do is just drip it all over the place, really. And you just want to make sure you've got enough paint to cover the size of card that you want to put in there. Or you can also do this on a larger scale and dip a canvas into it as well, if you'd rather. And you can keep topping this up and doing more and more in a row if you really like the colour scheme, or if you want to slightly change the colour scheme, you can go like further around the colour wheel and try not to make mud with your colours, but still carry on using the same bit of bubble wrap. And don't forget to leave the bubble wrap to dry, and then you can peel the skin out of it and use that on something too. So hopefully these colours will look nice together. They've all been flat colours so far, and now I'm going to add in some of the wine red, which is a metallic. Okay, so I think that should be enough paint. If it's not, we can always add a little bit more. And then all you do is press your card. You can see it squidging out, so I think it is enough paint. Press your card into it and then just pull it off. And then you get this really cool like cell and stringy kind of design. I really do love this technique, and it is so easy to do. And the fact that you get the piece on the bubble wrap afterwards, you know, all the extra paint on the bubble wrap too. So you can keep going as long as the paint kind of lasts, really. This is how I did those ones with the dark colours of paint that I had used. And you see, as you keep going, they kind of get a little bit muddier, where the colours are kind of mixing a little bit as well. Sorry, I keep checking that none of them are dripping next to me. And you can also kind of coax the paint further back in, because when you press down, you're kind of squishing the paint out, so you can kind of coax it back in and then press this down again. And you can pull from different directions to get the direction of the veining and stuff to be a bit different. You can see here I've got patches, which is like on the other one that I showed you. I actually got proper dots on it when I did that, but obviously it varies from colour to colour, and you know, different amounts of paint in there and stuff. So we might be able to get one more out of this. I'll try and put some of that paint. And if you wanted a really thick skin in this, you might want to leave it at this kind of stage with all of that paint in. Obviously it will dry, but you might have little holes in it if you haven't left enough paint in there, but it will still give a really cool effect. And you can also press a bit harder to try and get more paint up as well if you're running out. Or you can just top it up and keep going. Look at that, that looks so cool. And this behind any kind of little die cut panel or aperture on a card just looks so gorgeous. But you can also die cut it as well, so once it's dry you can actually die cut it too. So I will tidy up all of this and then I will finish the video. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how to do a few of my favourite kind of acrylic pour techniques, and then I thought I'd show you how easy it is to make some of these into cards. So some of these are finished cards, some of them are finished, and then I've got another version where I haven't got it finished, so I can kind of show you my thought process behind things. This one's a little bit dusty because it was for my mum, and I've actually just pinched it back off of her so I could show it to you. So this was one of the ones that was a squish without any silicone in it, and this is just a cut file, a digital cut file that I cut with my Scan and Cut, and then I've just used some Dymo on it as well. But you can see how simple it looks, just having that central design highlighting some of the pour. If you don't like this messy edge that you've got, you could have made this a complete panel in the front of it and had the design just cut in the centre, or die cut in the centre as well. But I quite like seeing that gorgeous messy edge to it, so that is one kind of way that you can create cards with this. Or I've got multiple examples using this world die, which I got from Hero Arts. I think I got it on Seven Hills Crafts. It's a really gorgeous world die. I made this one for Mum as well. I've nicked it back off her. So it says, "You're my favourite person on earth," and then I put Mama. I think this was it a Mother's Day card? No, it was a Valentine's Day card. And all I did was use one of those bubble wrap squishes with the neon colours to go behind this one, and then I've got a few other versions of this kind of a card to show you, because I really liked how that one looked. So I've done a few where this one I've actually stuck it flat down onto the background, and you can see how gorgeous that looks. Obviously I would add some doodling around the circle and add a sentiment and stuff to these. They're not finished cards, but then I've also done a couple here to show how adding the 3D foam, which I've actually been using the Arteza 3D foam that has the red liner backing on it that I showed in my Essentials video. But you can see how adding that 3D to it gives it a different look as well, because it gives it more shadow and kind of makes it look even more dimensional. But I think both ways look really nice. And then I've also just got one here just with the foam tape on the back ready to show how you can actually get your die cut panel and then change your mind for which part you might like to use, and you can actually just try out all of your different backgrounds that you've done and see which part of what pour and in what direction looks the nicest as well. And obviously you can do this with any of your dies that cut into the card. A lot of the tonic dies are verso, which means that they don't have a cutting edge on the outside, so you can actually cut them straight into the card, and this means that you hide all of these messy edges but you still get the gorgeous design with the pour in the background. So I think that's a great way of using these as well. Then I also did this. I forgot to actually mention this before, so it's a good job I did this, but this is kind of like what the finished card of this would look like. Where I've added on a little bit of Hollow Waves glitter card and some vellum scribbly squares in there as well. But I left this one not completely finished so that I could show you how I actually made this. So this is a tonic die, it's a silhouette die, the silhouette butterfly, where you can cut the intricate detail into the butterfly shape, and then you've got multiple different outside edges and sizes and stuff. So I cut one of these, I stuck it to a piece of white card, and then I took some colours of the paints and poured it over the top, and obviously as the paint dried it sort of suctioned down around the die cut, so you can actually see the die cut back again. But to give this its white outline again, you take the dried version, you stick another one on the top, and it gives you the detail back, but you've still got the pouring in the background. And then all you do is take one of the larger sizes, decide on what kind of cardstock or whether to layer a couple of cardstocks behind it, and then all you do is just add it to your card with a few other like vellum die cuts, and you get this gorgeous look. So you can even pour over the top of die cuts and get this kind of look. And if you had some of the larger dies that do like a complete background, this would look really gorgeous for that as well. Or you can cut lots of different smaller dies and do a complete background and then add the die cuts back on over the top, or leave it depending on what kind of look you like. And you could also sprinkle glitter and mica powder into these kind of ones as well. So I wanted to show that as another idea. Then this one is one of those really dark bubble wrap pours where I'd used black, so it came out really dark and moody, and it kind of looks like a really old kind of stone with loads of different imperfections in it and stuff. But I thought that would make a really nice masculine kind of a card, and you could have the deep brown cardstock or something as a sentiment on there. But I think that one looks really nice, and I really like how it just peeks through all of that like little cell detail and the different colours. It just peeks through that die cut detail, so I really like that too. And you can see on the back here, it looks a bit messy just because it's just a square behind, but obviously then you mount that onto your card front and no one will ever know that there's just a square of the pour behind. And if you had done a pour that was larger, for example this one, you might have been able to wrangle it so that you could have got two out of it as well. This was a smaller little square one, but if you're clever and frugal with the pours that you've done and you're only using smaller elements on your cards, you might be able to get two out of like a small little piece like this as well, which is brilliant. Then I also have this die set from Hero Arts as well. I think I bought it from the same place as the other one. And it's this gorgeous scene that has an underwater piece with a whale and a turtle, or yeah, turtle, and a couple of little fish and some little coral, a giraffe, a elephant, a little rhino, and a whole little scene in there. So this is where those rainbow ones came from, because I was trying to create a kind of underwater, like green and blue down here, and then this is like the kind of landscape with the, or it's kind of the sunset, that's what I mean, the sunset. But you could also bring it down here as well, because on the other one I did bring this line to be the water, but actually this is the top of the water, so I could on this one bring it down further. You get more of the depth of the sea, and you actually get this as being more of a sea kind of a colour, and then you've got less of that sunset kind of effect in the background. And I wanted to show how you can shadow a die cut just to give it even more emphasis. So that's how it would look just with the white one. But as soon as you add that black one behind it and offset them slightly, you can then get even more drama to it. And then also you can either stick it flat to the piece, or you can raise it up with 3D foam as well. So for example this one, I've added the 3D foam, but I've also shadowed it with a lighter colour. So it's shadowed with some Hollow Waves cardstock, which has got a rainbow sort of iridescence to it. And this is one of those lighter coloured backgrounds of a colour scheme that I never thought would actually really go together, but it works really nicely. And then I had this one too, just to show, even on a larger piece that you might have done, you can get your piece all ready and then you can decide where you want it to go. Maybe if you put it further over this way, you might be able to get another card out of it, or maybe a couple of butterflies. So lots of different things that you can do with them. And then I also, finally, as well, have this piece to show you, which was a little art journal page that I did with lots of collage elements that I created using the tempera paints. That the previous video to this one should have been an up close of the tempera paints, and I decided to pick a pour that would go with the colours that I'd used on this page, and then I just die cut it with a butterfly die and added that in as well. So I think that gives a really cool effect. And again, this could be a card front. It doesn't have to be an art journal page. I just used it in an art journal. But imagine that butterfly and maybe even this cool collagey background on a card as well. I think it would look really lovely. And you could even add the intricate detail over the top of that butterfly if you wanted to, or try and cut the intricate detail into it as well. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this up-close video looking at the pouring paints from Arteza. I've just got a few of them here to bring out and show. But I have had so much fun playing with these, and literally I have been playing with them for more than 6 months and gone through, well, I'm on my second box now. But they are so much fun to play with. They're so convenient having them already in the bottles. They don't seem to crack. hardly get any of the air bubbles in. A lot of people use the like a blowtorch to try and get the air bubbles out, but I'm scared of fire, so I don't really want to use one of those. But the only time I have found that I've got air bubbles is when I left the paint a little bit too thick. So you just want to make sure you spread it out quite nicely, and also when you're letting your pieces dry, you want to try and obviously keep them level because you don't want them running off one side of the piece of card, but you want to try to kind of raise them up off your work surface so that the air can circulate underneath them as well, and the top and the bottom will both dry at a similar rate, so you don't get any cracking that could occur on the top of it as well. And the way I just get that airflow underneath is a couple of the cups that I like to put my paint in to do the pouring from, lay them out, put the piece of card on top of it, and then the air can circulate really nicely as well. So I thought I'd just mention that too. Oh, and also I'll just remind you of the code as well, discount code. So if you love the look of these acrylic pouring paints and think you'll enjoy them as much as I have, you can get an extra 10% off the price of them using the code CRaFTiPotential5, which will be down here, and I'll also put it as the first thing in the description below the video as well, so that you can utilise that and easily copy and paste it onto the website to make it much easier for you, rather than having to remember the capitalisation, because I'm still not sure if it is like caps lock sensitive for the discount code. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this up close video. I had so much fun playing with all these bits and pieces and making all of the samples and things to show you, so I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. I'm sorry if it's really long. I can imagine this might be over an hour long, this video, but yeah, I really hope it was helpful to you as well. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!